So, I'm going to start this video off by saying that while this isn't the first time I've played 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, it is the longest and most true to the Dungeons & Dragons experience that most would associate with the game. The only other time I have played was with my friends Link and Mario. I was DMing and no one knew what they were doing, and it was pretty much an entire night of comparing the rules to 3.5. Which is unfair, because while some rules of the system are used, it's a new system in and of itself. We just didn't give it a fair shot. So some long weekends ago, I managed to finally get some time with my sister and a couple of her friends to sit down and play 5th edition. Which from here on, so I don't feel like I'm saying a tongue twister when I'm referring to the system, I'm just going to call it 5th Ed or 5E. Cool? Cool. As usual, I was DM. My sister and her fiance wanted to play some more Pathfinder, but I've been pretty rip-roaring and ready to play some 5e, which they were cool with. So they got another of their friends, Isaac, and one more dude, Cameron, aka Cam, to come along for the ride. They've all had some Dungeons & Dragons experience through 3.5 and Pathfinder. I arrived at the appointed time, except everyone else didn't, save for my sister and her soon-to-be hubby. Makes sense, it was their house. This was alright though, because having everyone there all at once asking questions and all that can get just a little straining. So I helped them make their characters, and they were just about done when Cam and Isaac came. That's when I learned of the wild card, Cam's wife. We'll call her Beyonce, mostly because that's her character's alias. She's apparently been into the idea of learning Dungeons & Dragons, and initially was just gonna hang back and watch. I'm thankful she didn't and instead made a character and joined in. Over the course of the next 2 hours, we finished character creation and some rule explanation. By the end of the total 3 hours, we had 5 characters ready to set out and start a little adventure to introduce them to the rules and how things were done in 5e. We were still referencing the rules, mind you, but new systems and all means that's to be expected. That said, 5e was rather simple to introduce the players to. We would have been going over saves, base attack bonuses, and feats for about 6 hours, especially with someone who's never played any D20 system before. By the end, we had a green dragonborn warlock who had been a mason worker before the dark powers made a pact with him, played by my sister's fiancé, Brian. A tiefling druidess that tires of being seen as only a monster she appears to be, played by my little sister. A gnome rogue that enjoys having a good time and little else, played by Isaac. A half-orc barbarian with a drinking problem, played by Cam. And a half-orc cleric to Ouijaz, who was more of a contract killer than insane cleric, played by Beyonce, and called Beyonce. There were a few things that threw me for a loop during character creation though, like the choice of cleric domains not seeming to include death, despite the gods in the back pages having those associated domains. Which just confused me, because why have the domain listed under the god, but not have it listed in the book? It was alright in the end, because Beyonce wanted to use knowledge under Ouijaz instead of death. It's just confusing to look it up online and see, oh, it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Silly me looking in the player's handbook for options for players to have. So it's a start of the typical tavern sort of scenario, which gets us pointed to a house in the town of Oakhurst, that's been vacated for some long time and recently taken back by the town official to be sold off. No one knows what has been going on in the manor, but it used to belong to Bellic the Outcast, to tie it to the Sunless Citadel. In this game, I'm having him as an ex-druid turned into some mad experimenter, attempting to blend undeath and nature to bring his brother back, but we'll see how well that turns out later. The characters are appointed to the Bellic Manor, and the butler, Mr. McHammond, yes, I'm terrible with names on the spot, is the last servant of the house, hired by the city council to assist in selling the house itself. Potential buyers are asked to stay a couple of nights to see if they like the manor and to make an offer if they do. They actually had no intentions of buying the place, but hey, plot hooks. One of the other people staying there, a noble who's been unable to sleep, has been hearing scratching from beneath the floor. Naturally, the party immediately suspects something to be in the wine cellar. With the fiancé's masonry knowledge, he is able to tell that there isn't anything odd about the walls with secrets or anything, so there may be another way into another cellar. They ask McHammond if they have floor prints of the house, which is rather smart, and they find that there was a sealed up cellar that Bellic had reopened and still used for nefarious needs. On the way down, my sister's character is subject to a weak stare and falls flat on her face and takes all but 2 HP worth of damage. She has this terrible luck with me. You see, the last 5 characters she's had has straight up died to pit traps. I'll have to get into that later though. With a little exploring, the party finds a cursed greatsword. Think an anti-mage bane, where you receive penalties for attacking anything that casts spells. And beyond that, Isaac's gnome pushed through some small tunnels, scouting ahead and nearly getting sucker punched by one of 3 myconids. It's okay though. Save for Cam getting punched in the gut for nearly no damage and Brian getting stunned for a whole minute, the myconids weren't any problems. There was a question about myconids being immune to acid or not because they were doing acid damage, which they aren't. And another where if the rogue gained sneak attack against an enemy when he had advantage from anything or just a specific form of advantage, which as written seems to be any attacks he's got advantage on. And one more about provoking attacks of opportunities from range attacks, which from what I found don't happen. It's pretty awesome. Pretty much everything is concise in the book itself if you know where to look, and everything about that subject is right there in the same area. The rules of attacks of opportunity, for example, are on 1 page, and everything is streamlined, but in a way that works, like to the point that new players understood how 2-weapon fighting and grappling worked. No joke, I feel like a college professor giving a lecture anytime I explain how grappling and 2-weapon fighting works in 3.5. I know it's worse in older editions, but I haven't played those older editions. Anyways, so after that, the party comes across a room with a massive dragon face on the south wall, and the north wall had a portion of the false wall revealed. Cam decided to bust it open. Behind it was an altar with an unholy symbol to a Shardalon, a powerful red dragon that is attempting to ascend to essentially godhood. The holy symbol was also cursed. Divine spellcasters such as clerics and paladins felt the innate evil in the holy symbol, keeping them from going to grab it. The rest needed to do a wisdom save or take up the symbol, and then have to suffer an indefinite madness, which would have given him another flaw that would have ranged from driving him to drink constantly to killing all the people ever. I'll explain that in a bit. So the party pretty much discovered that Bellic, or someone close to him at least, was in league with someone related to a Shardalon, and they more or less interrogated the butler over breakfast, and learned that Bellic had established a trade with the goblins in the Sunless Citadel itself. So that's where we left off, the party finding they need to head to the gorge and travel to the Citadel and see what's up with Bellic. Some experience was awarded, another day in the coming week is theorized to be scheduled for the next session, and soon we'll be dungeon delving proper. And not just rummaging through some guy's cellar with a nasty overgrown mold and fungus collection. Now, like I said, I've tried 5e before with my friends Link and Mario, but it was brief. We were more stuck on rules and how they compared to 3.5, but worse was that we were using this fantastic campaign setting, the world of Farland, and I didn't know where to start for a campaign idea. The world of Farland is this homebrew campaign world where, for the most part, evil has won in certain parts of the world. The world is bleak and the nations of good have all but crumbled and are on their last leg to fend off the 7 lords of sin. It's fully fleshed out and constantly updated on their webpage, and they even have put it into handy little PDF files. It's compatible with 3.5, Pathfinder, and 5e, so if you're a fan of either and have a penchant for the grimdark, check it out. Anyways, here I was with this wonderful and fleshed out campaign world, and I'm sitting there unable to really think about much beyond how the world worked. Not because I didn't know them, but because I didn't know which were removed, kept in, or in some cases enhanced and made easier to deal with. Again, I bring up the example of 2-weapon fighting. If you know the math and rules for 3-point Pathfinder, cool, simple. You take the feats, grab a light weapon for your offhand, or have a DM that doesn't read all the damn rules and lets you use 2 rapiers, Kelsey. and start swinging away at -2/-2 with additional attacks with more 2-weapon fighting feats that you get. But remember that you can only add half your strength score to the damage of the offhand weapon. Got that? Cool. Now here's 5e. Roll 2 attacks. One with the main hand weapon, one with the offhand weapon, and don't add strength or dex to damage to the offhand weapon. That's it. Sure, you don't get a million attacks in a second round like 3.5, but man, if it doesn't speed up the game some when you don't have to roll and calculate the damage for 4 to 6 attacks later in the game. Grappling is narrowed to only a couple rolls and not like 4 different rolls. Base attack bonus has been removed, as have skill points. Feats are a completely optional thing. ACs and DCs themselves are nowhere near as high and preposterous of numbers to obtain, let alone hit for as either a player or a monster. And it makes it a fair amount of challenge for both sides, and still fun. And proficiencies have been changed to not royally screw with you too much too. There's just been so much change that I would probably argue for the better, especially for getting into a game you have no clue about. Example? Take a guess how many questions were asked by the complete tabletop newbie. Go on, pause the video, put a number in the comments, I'll wait. 15. I still to this day have players ask a billion questions about creating a character, how some rules work, and so on for Pathfinder in 3.5. Some rules I know by heart thanks to having to look it up so many times and read aloud line for line over the last 10 years of DMing with friends. That's not even getting into the fact that it has rules and such to push your character to have, well, character, but this is already getting pretty long-winded. Just know that, yes, I fully endorse 5e. While I'm not planning on giving up 3.5 or Pathfinder anytime soon, I am happy to add it and playing it with my sister and her friends to my schedule again. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed 5th edition. I'm planning on making D&D stories to be at least bi-weekly, if not weekly, and I hope I don't burn myself out on it too soon. I enjoy sharing my stories and hearing what you guys have to say about them, both the good and the bad. How about you guys? What do you think of 5e? Too simple? Greatest tabletop RPG? Leave that in the comments below. Maybe once you're done there, you could hop on over to one of my 5 Let's Play series covering D&D games. Plus, if you want to support the channel financially, I got one of those crazy Patreon links. Check it out. Sorry if it's a little outdated, I really need to work on fixing that. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Cheers.